Should the Vols hire a GM? Also, we will get to some underrated three-star prospects. A lot to get to. Steve Hamer joins us as well. Let's get rolling off the hook sports.
And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there's someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
I mean, look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Boy, another show, another day, and another great show on this day. So welcome. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We are loaded up. Steve Hamer is our Tuesday guest during basketball season, and we love having him on. I mean, just absolutely love having him on. And the insight that he is able to provide has been absolutely phenomenal. He told us that Chaz was going to come on before Chaz came on, and suddenly Chaz came on. So I think now you know what you have a little bit more with Chaz, and I think this Tennessee coaching staff is doing a great job of working with him. And the reason we love Steve too, he's in the building. He works for the university, so you don't think he meanders down to practice every once in a while. Insight like you'll just won't get anywhere else. So welcome to the program. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports, and we've got a big show lined up besides just Steve, and that's a pretty good one. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Should the Vols hire a GM? Well, I feel like it's a matter of time, but I'm not so sure that now's the right time. I'll discuss with Caleb Calhoun. It was his idea, so he usually has strong feelings on that during our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. Who is the most underrated Tennessee football signee? That'll be Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, because let me tell you, half the 3 stars are going to play. Half are not. That's just the way recruiting works. It sounds ad nauseum and oversimplification, but Caleb, it's absolutely true. Also, will the Super Bowl lead to a Kirby Smart discount on the defensive line or maybe even elsewhere? Also, this day in Tennessee sports history, the Vols drop in the AP poll. That's a what the H right there. I'll just go ahead and tag that. So, I don't get that at all. Will 10-2 be enough to get the Vols in the college football playoff next year? Caleb has an idea why not. I'm having trouble following it, but here we go. Stat of the day as well. Steve Hamer will join us. Our early week staple will be 4 to watch. We'll have 4 prospects for you to keep an eye on. We had 4 pretty darn good ones yesterday. One that decommitted from Tennessee and might be re-engaged. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm good. I have an idea for a poll question. I'd like to go ahead and get started if you don't care.
Okay.
All right. And it is, should Caleb and Dave talk about the color scheme that they're wearing on that particular day? Because we're wearing almost the same color shirt. No, but I have a real one. So I'm at the mall, which I hate. I mean, hate the mall. I've gone into the mall probably in the past 30 years, maybe 8 to 10 times, literally. Like, my shopping is 2 things. I go to Talbot's for the ladies in my life. I go to Toys R Us for the kids in my life. And that's my favorite part because I just blow like $250 and it's great. But so I'm in the mall and I'm at the Apple store because I lost my phone number. That's a whole story that you're going to hear here shortly. Just hit the like and subscribe button if you want to hear about Dave's personal drama. But I'm in there, and so I tell the guy, like, they ask you to sit down on these benches and watch this big screen, and it's going to tell you about what a great show Severance is, and it's going to tell you about how incredible the new iPhone 38 is, and all of this stuff. And I just went to the guy and I said, dude, I'm not going to sit on a bench in an Apple store like I'm on a farm. And he goes, oh, really? And I said, yeah, here's $20. Get my phone working. And it worked. But so here I have free time. I have this time blocked off. And while my phone's updating, I'll leave it there. And have you heard of these jeans called Lucky Jeans?
Yes, I have, obviously.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. I hadn't heard of them until yesterday. So what are Lucky Jeans? What would they, if somebody wore a pair of Lucky Jeans, it's not like the Hurleys or whatever where you look like a total goofball.
It's just a brand of jeans. Dave is like Dave's out here having an epiphany of a new brand of jeans.
Okay, but I was a strict Levi guy. Never Lee. You know what, Lee? Not Lee. Did you ever have a pair of Lees?
I don't think so. Why?
Oh, too soft. It's like well, nowadays everybody wears pajama bottoms, but they were just too soft. Okay, so poll question that we'll get started with: can Dave pull off Lucky Jeans? See, I thought they were trendy, but they fit really well since I've lost a little bit of weight. And this is guess how many pairs of jeans I have owned since I was 25 years old?
I want to say 3.
It's pretty close. It's 2, and I lost one of them in a move, so I only had them for like 2 weeks. So basically, it's 1.5. But 3 is pretty good. How many jeans have you owned in that time span?
Oh, I've owned a good bit, largely because I change with the trends. And for those who don't know, I'm a pretty slender guy. So when the skinny jeans were in style in the 2010s, I rocked them because they looked good on me. And now, apparently in this new woke era, wearing skinny jeans you're basically fat shaming people who can't fit in skinny jeans.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you come across as insensitive if you wear skinny jeans now.
So I went with the straight slim leg. So that means I'm slightly insensitive. Is that what that means?
No. Straight legs is fine. It's the slim fit skinny jeans that are like really tight, like right around your legs. It's like, yeah, that you're apparently making fun of people who can't fit those jeans. If you do that, you're bragging about the fact that you can fit tight jeans. And I'm like, well, if I can fit tight jeans, what's wrong with that?
Hey, listen, let me tell you, I shopped in the Husky section when I was a kid. For 40 or 50 years, I couldn't fit in fat jeans, but I didn't complain about it. I just got me a pair of sweatpants and moved on with life. It's kind of embarrassing, but that's what I did. All right, so can Dave pull off Lucky Jeans? That's our poll question. We'll see what people say. I thought it was trendy. I thought it was cool. You mean stand up at any point? I would stand up and show them to you, but you'll only see my crotch, and that would be...
Yeah, that'd be a little weird.
That'd be a little uncomfortable. Our only fan site with me and Caleb. That sounds worse. Let's get... I'm going to stop going down that road. Today's tough question, as we broadcast live in the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I mean, the East Tennessee's best volume dealer, best service. It's not even close. But here we go. It's today's tough question, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, here we go. Caleb, you came up with this idea. Should the Vols have a GM? A general manager. For those of you that aren't big NFL fans, typically general managers, at least the way it's supposed to be constructed, they're in charge of doing the shopping. And Bill Parcells was in charge of doing the cooking. So that's theoretically how it's supposed to work. I look at I'll take the Titans, for instance. I thought Mike Vrabel was a solid coach and will have more success before the end of his career. He didn't have the best GMs shopping for him. So that's just an example for those that might not understand the GM role. Now, that can vacillate Some GMs have more power than others, but for the most part, that's how it's supposed to work, right?
Correct.
Okay. It rarely works that way. Probably out of 32 NFL teams, 16 do it right. But anyway, Dallas Cowboys. But Caleb, why do you think the Vols need a GM?
So I think this is a way to, and this struck me because Ron Rivera got hired out at Cal. And interestingly enough, Dave, in basketball.
In a GM role.
In a GM role. Yeah, in a GM role.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, you're going to find this funny. When you were off last week, we talked about this in basketball. UNC is eyeing Buzz Peterson to be its official GM. And now we can make fun of it, but like what we realize with coaching in college is there are some people that are really bad coaches, and it's usually for one or two reasons. It's one, because they don't know ball, they're bad X's and O's coaches. And the other one is they are terrible at evaluating talent. And look, we've said this about Jeremy Pruitt. Terrible coach, great talent evaluator. Like A+ talent evaluator. I would hire Jeremy Pruitt as a GM of my football program tomorrow. Buzz Peterson was that in basketball.
Whoa. No, you wouldn't. Because a GM, as I define it, is in charge of salary caps, NIL money. Now, you would hire him as a talent evaluator, like your lead scout. Is that?
Maybe the lead scout, yeah. And then I'd hire a GM that actually understands math, because he probably doesn't know math.
Math no good, Jeremy say.
So, but the reason it was intriguing and it struck me is because Buzz Peterson, we forget this, Dave. Say what you want about Buzz Peterson, the coach. He found Chris Lofton. No one else wanted Chris Lofton. And Buzz went out of his way to recruit. Now, I don't know. Some people think Chris Lofton fell into his lap, but he did target Chris Lofton. He targeted Juwan Smith heavily. He was all in on Tyler Smith like 3 years before Tyler Smith graduated. So Buzz Peterson did seem to scout talent relatively well when he was at Tennessee. He just couldn't recruit the top talent, and he couldn't coach for anything. I thought about this with Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel runs a great system. I still believe in it, particularly with the right quarterback. I think Josh Heupel has had serious issues scouting talent. I mean, serious ones. And we're talking about a guy who has yet to sign an offensive lineman out of high school that has started for him, and he's entering year 5.
Okay, I'll take you a step further. I'm not going to go GM because I think that's essentially what Danny White is. All right, and you're talking about a GM for a particular sport, so I'm not going to go that far, and I'm not going to go so far as to say that they need a GM over any particular sport, because for the most part, they're doing a good job of talent evaluation, right? Rick Barnes is, Kim Caldwell is, the baseball team obviously is. By the way, they get started this week. We're going to work to get John Wilkerson on.
Baseball is nothing but being a GM. That's all the sport is in college baseball. Recruiting and identifying the talent is like 97% of winning a title, pretty much.
Pretty good point. Okay, so here's something crazy. It's a catchy headline, and I mean it. When is Jeremy Pruitt's show cause up? Can you look that up for me?
Sure. I believe it might already be up, isn't it?
I think it is. By the way, can Dave pull off Lucky Jeans? Yes, he's hip. 62%. No, too old.
Wait, it's up, and it's not up until 2029. So he's out until unless it's prorated from when he was out, when he first got fired, then it's up in 2027. But if it's up from like when he got the show calls, he's out till 2029. So 2027, 2029, around that time.
Okay. Should the Vols hire Jeremy Pruitt
as a lead talent evaluator?
Yes, not a GM, because he know like numbers. But I'm talking about just as your head of scouting. I mean, a lot of times your head of scouting, and I'm not calling out anybody at UT. I'm not even. They've got it so split up and fragmented. It's not like it used to be. Like there used to be one person in charge of scouting. Okay, so he would look at everybody, and then he would divvy it up to different coaches to recruit. Nowadays, you've got one guy who has in-state guys. You've got one guy who has the Carolinas. You've got. I mean, it's completely different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different. So, but what if Jeremy Pruitt ultimately had to give a thumbs up or thumbs down to that guy gets a scholarship or NIL money? And you don't even tell him how much it is. You keep track of the money, but would that be the dumbest idea in the world? And here's the other thing. The show cause penalty, correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with on-field coaching.
Yes.
So you could bring him in. Now, I do see one potential problem with that. Today's tough question, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers that say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones. Led by T. Scott Jones, they won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney, they play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. Okay, so bring back Jeremy Pruitt. Now, here would be the one possible problem with that is that he's a dirty cheater. And I think we could. But now that's not cheating. I mean,
and also, if you didn't give him the executive authority, it wouldn't matter.
And you could get around the show cause. So the people think a show cause means you can't be hired. Okay, so let's pretend Caleb has a 3-year show cause, and there's a governing body called the FCC. Okay, so basically the way it works is it's not that I can't hire Caleb; it's that I have to go to the FCC and show them why he should be hired and involved, and why he was not going to give out monies in Chick-fil-A bags like I had this morning. So, Caleb, I'm having trouble logically finding a way why this isn't a good idea, because how many wins does Josh Heupel have right now?
As a head coach of Tennessee or just all time?
Yeah, no, just right at Tennessee.
10 plus 11 is 21, plus 9 is 30, plus 7, 37 wins.
Okay, how many would he have if not for Jeremy Pruitt's talent evaluation?
Oh, I don't think he's beaten Alabama in 2022. I don't think he's beating Kentucky in 2021. I don't think he's beating. So that's 2 right there, just right off the bat. And then I bet he loses another one or 2 somewhere. So I would say 33 without Jeremy Pruitt's talent evaluation.
Because you got to remember, at the end of the day, football is the ultimate game of Jimmys and Joes. And
yes,
just the ultimate. There's no other sport like it. You can talk about pitching strategy and baseball and all that, but when it comes down to it, it is all about your Jimmys and Joes. So you're right. Not only would he lose those 2 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if he lost another just because he didn't have a clear talent advantage.
And here's the point I want to drive home with this. See, I would have an entire GM office, basically. What I mean with that is I would have a lead scout, Jeremy Pruitt. I would have a numbers cruncher, which you talk about. You know, a guy that says this is what you can afford, this is what you can't. Like I guess the Jonah Hill guy from Moneyball, that guy that says what you can afford and what you can't afford. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then I would have a head GM who listens to them both and makes executive decisions. And here's the way my program would work. I would have the head GM listen to both. Then the head GM goes to the coaches and say, here's a list of guys you need to identify. Here's what you need to promise. You guys, because the coaches are going to have to do the recruiting still, right? They're going to have to actually go talk to the players.
Right.
So if I'm the head GM, I then go to the coaches and say, here's who you need to offer. Here's who you need to recruit. Here's who you need to go after. This way, look, let's talk about recruiting for a minute. Dave, what's the biggest drawback to recruiting for coaches? It's not actually, and you know this, you covered it. It's not actually going and talking to the guys and having to stay in contact. It's having to identify them. That's so much work.
Yeah, and having to keep track of, even in a small region, 250 from their sophomore year on. And if you could eliminate some of those guys, that would help. I mean, you want to keep in track with some of them, just in case they hit that growth spurt like Michael Jordan did. But no, I mean, I think if you had somebody that said, he can't play, all right. People think it's funny the way I talk, all right. I mean, that's not Jeremy Pruitt.
If you could just hire someone that did that identified the player, And then all you have to do is the coaches go recruit to him. Wouldn't that take a huge load off these head coaches at that point? And they could focus a lot more on ball?
Yeah. Or even not necessarily identify, just eliminate. Say that guy's never going to be able to play.
Yes, that's a good point. You're right.
I had an NFL scout take a look at we're going to talk about the 3-star guy, so I'm not going to mention his name. But I had an NFL scout tell me he can't play. He can't play at the college level, and I don't know why they gave him a scholarship.
It's what you call the somewhere, anywhere, nowhere guys, right? The lead scout could be the guy that tells you that's a nowhere guy. Because this was Derek Dooley's drawback in recruiting. For those who don't know why Derek Dooley never recruited Von Bell, he had the most long-term, like, drawn-out, detailed evaluation process possible. And by the time, like, a player checked off every box, once he was trying to recruit him, like 5 other schools were already down the road recruiting him at that point.
That may be 100% accurate. I can't tell you. I can tell you this. He was just damn lazy. Like, he didn't want to drive to Chattanooga. He didn't go to not one high school football game during his time at Tennessee.
Well, I had heard that too, but I thought it was just in Tennessee where he didn't go to. I thought he focused his recruiting elsewhere, just outside of the state. To a large degree.
I was told he didn't go to one single high school football game. Anyway, that was just a huge collaboration of a mess. So I don't think there's any question about that. Now, so what's our poll stand at, by the way?
Oh, how hip is Dave? Okay, no. Should the Vols bring back
forward?
Okay, well, so should the Vols bring back Jeremy Pruitt? I don't think we made it clear on what we meant, because we're kind of implying to some people maybe we're talking about rehire him over Josh Heupel, which is not what we're saying. Can I rephrase the poll question?
You can rephrase the poll question. I want to tell everybody, but I want to change the poll question here in a second.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Okay, it's National Hemp Day. So I want to remind you that there is absolutely no place better than to get your hemp than the Hemp House. The Hemp House is fantastic, and you're absolutely going to love it. Go to hemphousechatwith2ts.com. Hemphousechatwith2ts.com. You'll be absolutely blown away. And don't forget to use that promo code that is 10% off. So let me ask you this. Let's make this the poll question. Pro hemp, pro alcohol, if you had to choose one.
Well, people would choose alcohol on that. I mean, if you say weed, it's one thing, but hemp's a little bit like different. I get what you're saying with hemp, but like it's not technically.
No, I really think that my kids, they think alcohol is absolutely stupid. So I'm not so sure that I won't win this out. So let's throw it out there and see what happens. Hemp House, the premier dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2ts.com.
We have to
go to Hooked for 10% off. Yes.
We have to throw in what David Speak said. He's right. David Cutcliffe as a GM. Smart, talent evaluator. By the way, I don't know if you know this, Dave. This came out last week. Travis Kelce said when he was coming out of high school, like Tennessee was one of the only major schools recruiting him. David Cutcliffe apparently really wanted Travis Kelce. The reason Tennessee didn't land him was because they wanted him at tight end, and Travis Kelce at the time was still wanting to play quarterback. But
quarterback?
Yeah, Travis Kelce committed as a quarterback, and then he switched over to tight end. Funny enough.
Out.
But David Cutcliffe immediately wanted him at tight end. Like, Cutcliffe saw Travis Kelce as like a Hall of Fame tight end before anybody. He was a 2-star quarterback. Who identifies a 2-star quarterback and says, you're a future tight end for me? I mean, and David Cutcliffe immediately wanted that. That's a good one. And you tell me if I'm wrong, but David Cutcliffe is one of the best talent evaluators in football, isn't he?
Yeah, I will say this, and I love him as a man. He really is one of the few coaches that I got really close with. I don't know that his health is where it needs to be to take on a job like that. I mean, it's going to be stressful, right?
I don't think so, because he's not actually doing the recruiting, or he's not doing the coaching on the field. He's just identifying the guys and then going to Josh Heupel and saying, here's who you need to go after.
Yeah, but there are some guys that are just so innately competitive.
They naturally work too hard at the job.
I think you tell him, hey, this is a 40-hour-a-week job, and he'd be at the facility like 60
80 hours.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's him, and his health's not great. So, I think 10 years ago would be great, but he still wanted to coach 10 years ago. Now, this thing showed up here, and I'm not really sure how to figure it out. Okay. Oh, I got it. So, I want to congratulate or thank Dale Conklin, Crawdad Watson, Timothy McGee, John Lee, and Steve Sullivan. Those are our first 5 members. Steve, I think, was number 1, by the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop a Hound Dogs gift certificate in the mail for you. Use the promo code HOOKED. You'll still get 10% off, and you'll get a Hound Dogs gift certificate where you can shop online, and they'll absolutely deliver anywhere. Hound Dogs of Knoxville champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com. Also want to remind you, Joe Neubert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Neubert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. So Mr. Neubert has said he'll fix your car for free if you're in an accident, as long as you're a member of the channel. No, he didn't say that. But every week, we're going to give away either a Celebrate 98 book that you can see over my shoulder, or we're going to give away a T-shirt, or more prizes maybe from Hound Dogs. But everybody that signs up gets that Hound Dogs gift certificate. And Steve can attest to the fact that the mail doesn't run fast, but it does actually get there. So it will get there. They're going in the mail today. Now, changing gears a little bit. You had a couple of interesting topics today that we wanted to dive into. And one, who is the most underrated Tennessee football signee? It's hot or cold. It's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. City Heating and Air, over 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. So I'm not going to name the one that I was told he shouldn't have got a scholarship. But we do want to look at the other 3 stars. So we're going to go ahead and roll out, and then we'll pick 4 and put them on the YouTube poll so you can decide who you most like. Obviously, the jewel is David Sanders as a 5-star. Isaiah Campbell, the defensive lineman out of Durham, North Carolina, who I hear more and more good things about, 4-star. Deshaun Brom out of Kansas, 4-star. Maryland Dye is a 4-star as well. Travis Smith, the wide receiver that everybody wanted, 4-star. A lot of 4-stars. Nick Moore out of Jeff County, 4-star. Ethan Utley, 4-star as well. Christian Gass is a 4-star. Rodarius Jackson is a 4-star. George McIntyre is a 4-star. Jaden Lofton is a 4-star. The more you look at this class, the more you got to like it. Jaden Perlow, 4-star as well. Jaden Harmon, a 4-star. Jack Van Dorselaer out of Southlake, Texas. Those guys never pan out. Is a 4-star as well. Trey Poteet, depending on if it's Poteet, as Caleb said yesterday, or it's my old drinking buddy from high school, which would be Poteet. That's a 4-star as well. So then we get into the 3-stars. And Caleb, I'm going to throw the names at you real quick. Tyler Redmond, cornerback out of Georgia. Dwayne Morris, running back out of Murfreesboro. Timothy Merritt, cornerback out of Birmingham, Alabama. Antonio Cade Ogamura, an offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Dylan Lewis, the cornerback out of Alpharetta. Justin Baker out of Buford, running back. Brendan Ains, a linebacker out of Franklin, Tennessee. When nobody produces great linebackers like Franklin, Tennessee. Sidney Walton out of Moody, Alabama, is a safety. So we've got about a little less than a little less than a dozen to choose from. But the 3-star you like, or give me a couple, and let's fill out the message board that are most impressive to you. And let's get your votes on the message board as well. People are saying, hopefully, Justin Baker. And there we go. What do you got?
I could see with Justin Baker, but I still maintain that he would probably have to compete with Dwayne Morris. And because I think Peyton Lewis is going to be the physical back. I am highest, and I've really been big on this guy, Timothy Merritt, the kid out of Birmingham. And Merritt was initially committed to Miami, but Tennessee didn't stop recruiting him even after he was committed to Miami, and they flipped him in early December of last year, right after Laganza Hayward flipped to Florida. He was a star when he led his high school, Parker High School in Birmingham, which is one of those like small schools, even though it's in Birmingham where the talent's good, it's like a forgettable school. And he basically carried them to the state title this past year. He was he had 2 touchdowns in his state championship game. He was getting better each week during their playoffs, and it's just a ridiculous athlete more than anything else at 6, and also as a size guy at 6'2", 180. I think this guy is one of those guys that he's raw, so he'll probably have some developing to do, but Dave, you tell me, I feel like cornerback, if you're athletic enough, even if you're raw, you can kind of step in as a freshman and start and make a big impact.
You can. Here's my concern, though, because they went out of their way to make sure that Peyton Lewis had an extra year of eligibility, right? He ended up redshirting last year. Okay, so I feel like they think that position's pretty stacked, even though they like Bishop more than me. I would typically agree with you.
No, I'm talking cornerback. This is a cornerback.
Oh, corner. I misunderstood you. Yeah, corner is the second most position behind running back that you can step in and play right away.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so Timothy Merritt, I think, with Jamal McCoy out, could easily step in. And also, for those who aren't aware, they're not as good as Mobile kids, but those like Central Alabama kids tend to be way better than their recruiting ranking indicates. Like most of the time, they like always pan out, don't they, Dave? It's very similar to Mississippi kids. You get a 4-star from Mississippi, you probably got a 5-star. Most notably, I think Paris Harrelson when Tennessee got him.
Yeah, or Paris Hilton. All right, give me some more.
Is she from Mississippi?
It's hot.
So Timothy Merritt is my top guy of 3 stars that I think could make an impact this year. And I mean literally this year. Now, my other guy, and this is my other major one, is Justin Baker out of Buford. I think he will have a little bit of competition with Dwayne Morris, but it's open competition, honestly. And I usually like Murfreesboro kids, but let's call it what it is. Coming out of Buford, Georgia, Justin Baker was more tested as a running back than Morris was, like significantly so. And so I think they might have but Baker has a 50-50 shot of being Peyton Lewis's complimentary all-purpose back, despite being a 3-star. So watch out for him. And by the way, Dylan Sampson was a 3-star. So 3-star backs do work out if they come from the right place.
And David wanted to point out, I think Merritt was going to play safety. He might end up playing safety. He might play cornerback out of need with the McCoy injury, or he might play safety and they shift to safety into that vacant early season absence by McCoy. So still, I think the fact that they could use a little boost back there holds true to what Caleb's saying. Who else?
So those are my top 2. I'm not high on really anybody else making an impact this year, but if I went by default, I would probably go Tyler Redmond out of Alpharetta, just based on the need at cornerback to a certain degree. I can't see Antonio Cade Ogumara. I can't see a 3-star offensive lineman becoming a starter his first year. I can't see a 3-star linebacker becoming a starter his first year. Sidney Walton out of Moody, Alabama could be an impact player, very athletic. But I lean more Tyler Redmond is my third option. So my 3 that I'm leaning towards the most are Timothy Merritt, Justin Baker, and Tyler Redmond.
Okay. So I'm going to do I get to include one? Am I allowed?
You can include whoever you want.
All right. I'm going to go with a guy out of Franklin, Tennessee called Brendan Ains, who plays linebacker, and Tennessee is incredibly thin at linebacker. So I believe he'll play. I don't know. Do you feel like any of these? Give me your 3 again.
My 3 are Timothy Merritt, Tyler Redmond, and Justin Baker.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like these guys play real minutes, starter types, or are they Ethan Davis just chucking the ball early in the season so he's happy and doesn't transfer?
I think Merritt and Baker have a 50-50 shot each of playing real minutes. Honestly, I do. I think Tennessee has major issues at cornerback, and Timothy Merritt is a rare athlete who also, again, the only thing that would hold Timothy Merritt back is, it's always hard to determine this, and this hurts Hendon Hooker. You can't evaluate a guy who plays his best in the biggest moments, because the biggest moments are never practice. Like, that's always what held Juwan Jennings back, was like, they may not. The difference between a Juwan Jennings and other guys is Juwan Jennings literally turns it on to another level when he's playing in the biggest moments.
I would love to think of his name, but I can't right now. He was a really tall receiver. And you talk about there's practice players and there's pro players. You could probably help me with his name. He was long and skinny. He kind of had a Randy Moss type body. And the scout said, I'll go ahead and tell you who the best prospect on this team is. It's that guy right there. He hadn't caught 4 balls. And it was this sophomore year. But, okay, so here's what we're going to do.
I'll tell you, Dave, I'll give you this. I mean, I've heard people say, you can say this as a Cowboy fan, people have said Jerry Rice may be the best all-time receiver, but if you need a play in the Super Bowl, you go to Michael Irvin more than any other receiver in history.
You'll get me started with Michael Irvin is underrated and all that stuff, but I know you don't believe it, so I'm not going to go down that path. Who is Tennessee's most exciting 3-star commitment? Timothy Merritt, Justin Baker, Brendan Ains, Tyler Redmond. We'll get the votes here momentarily. Who are you hot or cold on? So obviously Caleb is hot on Merritt, Baker, and Redmond. I'm hot on Ains. And for some reason, even though my name's on the show, I just got 2. I got 1 selection while Caleb got 3. That's hurtful. It's hurtful. Hot or cold, brought to you by our good friends, City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com, over 50 years in East Tennessee. And here's the greatest part about it. Integrity matters.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Okay, can I take it a step further if you don't care?
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready to roll.
So we're both obviously hot, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning on David Sanders, right?
Correct.
Okay. Who are you hottest on among the 4 stars? You've got the list in front of you. Who stands out to you the most? I'm going to go a little bit out on a limb here because I know everybody wants to pick skill position players, but given what they've been able to produce in terms of defensive linemen, and I've watched some tape on him, man, I like Ethan Utley a lot. I think he comes in at 6'3.5", 265, can get up to 300 very comfortably. Of the 4 stars, who are you hot on? Because I'm hot on Ethan Utley.
See, I'm hot on Jaden Harmon. I think because that's where I'm like, you plug a guy in at linebacker where you need some depth, and Jaden Harmon is a raw athlete that could be really, really good. So I'm a Jaden Harmon guy myself. And also, Desan Brim, the tight end. Look, Tennessee needs a little more depth at tight end this year. So watch out for that.
We had fun talking about should they bring Jeremy Pruitt back to evaluate talent. But let's remember, we named all these guys that we think are going to have an impact, and the name George McIntyre never came up.
No, you're right. Not once. But it would be a disappointment for Tennessee if George McIntyre had an impact, Dave. I mean, and we can talk about why, but it would be a big disappointment if that happened.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. All right. This day in Tennessee sports history coming up. Give me 2 minutes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I am super excited to shop for my Bronco, and I'm ready to get that thing, just get it keyed in, drive off the lot, because I know it's the best customer experience that you can possibly imagine. I will tell you what. They have walked me through the options, and there's a lot of different trim packages on those Broncos. I think I'm going with the Outer Banks model, but I see something else and I changed my mind. But whether it's partnering with local businesses or sending someone home in their first car, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. They want to be a part of special moments in East Tennessee. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln views it as an honor to serve their friends and neighbors. Give me 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Hey Ted, it's time to save some cash to our New Year's Bash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb's still playing hurt. I think he's pro hemp.
I tried to mute my mic right before I coughed, and the unfortunate noise that came out was just like a really weird noise out of my mouth at the same time. So yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, I was out over the weekend and I learned something. I've never taken meth. You probably have, but I haven't.
What do you mean? I probably have. I've never touched meth.
Yeah. So you smoke it. How does that work? I mean,
I knew you smoked it.
Oh, you knew you smoked it? I thought you snorted it or something.
No, you smoked meth. You ever see the Herbert the pervert from Family Guy?
Oh yeah.
When he's on meth that one time and he's like, "Where you going, kids? Where you going? Come back here. Come on.
Get your fat ass back here." That's still the best line. Well, I mean, I heard that line and I had to pause the show because I was laughing so hard.
Well, I suppose laughs about trying new things.
Give us an update on the poll questions that are out there. In particular, I think that alcohol hemp one was pretty entertaining. And my cool jeans, my Luckies.
Oh man, Dave thinks he's so cool. He just thinks he's just cool as heck.
I just got lucky pants.
Who is Tennessee's most exciting 3-star commitment? Justin Baker, Timothy Merritt, Brendan Ames, Tyler Redmond. Do you want me to go ahead and give the winners?
Yeah.
Justin Baker leads by a plurality of 43%. Timothy Merritt is at 29%. And then Brendan Ames at 21% and Tyler Redmond at 7%.
Are you saying that I may have misspelled someone's name?
No, no. When I say Timothy, I say it jokingly. Did you ever see the Key and Peele sketch
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Jake Quallen. I got my eye on you, Jake Quallen.
I actually liked that show more when it was called the Dave Chappelle Show.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Stat of the day, Caleb. What do we got? I want to remind people that, again, if you're a member of Hookers, well, if you're a member of this channel, we're getting rid of the Patreon thing, but you're still going to be eligible to win prizes. You're automatically going to get a $25 gift certificate to HoundDogs of Knoxville. Plus, you'll be registered for weekly gifts. And at the end of this week, we're giving away this John Henderson mini autographed helmet. I don't care if I don't care if I lose an arm on the way to the studio. We're doing it this week because things have gotten in the way. All right, so coming up, we'll have Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. But let's start with the stat of the day, and that's brought to you by our good friends at Double D Piping Fire Protection Contractors.
I got a crazy stat for you that is going to shock you. With their win at Oklahoma on Saturday, Tennessee basketball's win at Oklahoma on Saturday marked the fourth time in school history that the football program won 10 games and the men's basketball program won 20 games in the same academic calendar year.
That's pretty good. Say that again.
With Tennessee basketball's win at Oklahoma on Saturday, which gave them their 20th win on the season, it marked the fourth time in the entire history of Tennessee that the football program had 10 wins and the men's basketball program had at least 20 wins in the same academic calendar year.
That's pretty good. That's really good.
You want to guess the other three?
The other 3 years?
Yeah.
It'd be 98, right?
98, 99. Yep.
Okay. I want to go 99, 2000.
The football program went 9-3 that year.
Now you're gonna have to help me. And by the way, somebody said I've been buying a Bronco for 3 weeks now. Check it. Well, here's the reason. I'm not going to call them out because the insurance company, I was in a car wreck, and the insurance company wants to try to repair my vehicle instead of total it. And I'll send you pictures of it, Caleb. It's ridiculous. And I will start to call them out. And let's just say it rhymes with Groot. Go ahead.
All righty.
So I want my Bronco.
One of them was just 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago, Josh Heupel went 11-2, and Rick Barnes surpassed 20 wins. Then 98-99 was the other one, and then the fourth year goes all the way back to, and the first time it ever happened goes all the way back to 1970-71, where the 1970 football team went 11-1, and the 70-71 basketball team under Ray Mears won 20 games, and I think their second regular season SEC title.
Let me go ahead and tell you, that stat is hot. Brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb, if you weren't busy slinging meth on Sunday night, could you remind everyone how the Super Bowl played out?
Well, I mean, meth would have been more fun than the Super Bowl. I'll tell you that much. That was honestly, the defensive linemen I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line should have taken some meth. Maybe it would have made them play better. And I'm calling out Trey Smith for that. But the whole unit played absolute garbage. But yeah,
I had a buddy who went to a small school. I think I've told you this before, and cocaine like ran through the locker room. And I said, I mean, did you just take it like on a Friday night or something? He goes, no, we took it during games. I was like, well, I was like, how did that work out? He goes, we were awesome in the first and third quarters. Because they could take it before the game and then at halftime, and then you crash.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The Chiefs didn't take the biggest L Sunday night. Drake took the biggest L Sunday night. Imagine a whole halftime show dedicated to just pointing out how much you suck.
Yeah. All right. So did you know I've done a halftime show at an NFL game?
Oh, you have?
Mm-hmm. You don't believe me, do you?
Oh, at an NFL game, not the Super Bowl. No, I actually do believe you.
Okay.
Were you in a marching band?
I'll tell you more about it later. All right. Okay. So here's my argument, and I'm going to write something about this because let's be more specific. Why did the Eagles win that game? It was the defensive line, correct?
The defensive line was absolutely dominant.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of those defensive linemen, well, where did those defensive linemen play their college football?
So the Eagles technically run a 3-4, but it's kind of like you talk about with the Jeremy Pruitt, the one guy plays with his hand up that could play, that's basically a fourth defensive lineman. You know what I'm talking about? And if you count,
it's kind of different from James Pearson, a 4-point stance. But anyway.
Yes, exactly. But basically, if you include that, then the Eagles had 3 of their 4 defensive linemen playing having graduated from Georgia. And I'm talking about Jordan Davis at nose tackle, Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith Jr. All came from Georgia. And they all wreaked havoc in that game. Just absolutely all destroyed it, which is why someone made the joke that Jalen Hurts got benched in the national title game because he couldn't do anything against Georgia's defensive line. But then he teamed up with Georgia's defensive line in the NFL and became Super Bowl MVP.
Okay, so Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank member FDIC, life made better. Do you believe that the prospects that are out there considering Georgia or another school should take a discount like players did from a playing standpoint, not an NIL discount, but of a playing standpoint, they would be willing to sit for 2 years like they did with Sabin. Do you think they should, and he had a little bit of a discount towards the end of his NIL era, but do you think that players, let's say it's your son, Quincy Calhoun, he's going to Georgia, and Georgia has agreed to pay him $500,000. Okay. Or he's going to Alabama and they're going to pay him $750,000. You take the discount to go get coached up at Georgia.
Yes, I would. Honestly. Now, if you bring up Tennessee with Rodney Garner, I may listen a little bit differently, but specifically Georgia, specifically with the defensive line coach they have there and Trey Scott, who I think is a young Rodney Garner and will be like the most respected defensive line coach in the SEC of all time in 20 years. Yeah, I would take the discount to go play for Georgia, honestly.
Okay. Bank on It. Caleb's Crazy. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Okay, so let me make sure that I got you right here. You're telling me that you would take $250,000 less from, let's say, in Alabama, and I took Tennessee out of the equation because you went there, and there might be some heartstrings, and you like Rodney Garner, obviously. I don't think he's going to be
No,
around.
There's no heartstrings. It's more about just you don't lose as much potential going to Rodney Garner because Rodney Garner's going to get you to the NFL too.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do here for funsies. You said $250,000 would be a difference, right?
Correct.
Okay. $250,000 just if you make 8% annually for 25 years is $1.7 million. Caleb, you can't turn that down. You've got to take more money. And listen, I understand the argument of going to Georgia and having, and it's not just the players that have gone there, and it's not just their coaching. I can tell you right now, I've been around a program where the NFL scouts didn't trust your guys, but I've been around programs that the NFL scouts did trust your guys implicitly. And I think that you benefit from going to Georgia because, yes, you're going to be trusted implicitly. But over the course of 25 years, when young Quincy Caleb would be coming up on his 50th birthday to have $1.7 million in the bank, you just can't turn that down. You can't turn that money down at that age. And I love Quincy, and I think he's one of the more athletic 9-month-olds I've ever seen. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you there's a 50-50 chance he's a bust.
Okay, but what stats? Okay, so you're saying, okay, what about this? So you said 500 versus 250, right?
Okay.
So 250, you're still getting that 1.7 million. The difference is it's 3.4 million versus 1.7 million. Because you put that 250 away, it's still 1.7 million with the APR because you did it with interest rate, right?
Well, kind of the reason I picked those numbers is like you could take the 500,000 and buy Jordan a house, Quincy's mother. You could buy your own house. You could set yourself up where you're not paying interest rates. 500,000, depending on where you live, should be able to do that.
Okay, what about this? 500 versus 450.
Oh, then I'm going to Georgia.
Yeah, so you are saying there's a discount on the table right now to play defensive line at Georgia.
Well,
it's just not much. You made me make a point with the 250,000. Like that's 500 versus 250. That's leaving a lot on the table because that's over 4 years. That's life-changing money, even if you're a bust in the NFL. That's a life-changing level of money difference. But 500 versus 450. Now again, over 4 years, that's $200,000 plus. I don't know what the 8% return is, so you're still leaving a few $100,000 on the table, honestly. But isn't that worth the gamble to go a higher round in the NFL draft, given the money difference in the rounds in the draft?
I love to gamble, okay? And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say my limit at times that I've gone in, but let's just say it's been decent 4 digits. And I've won and I've lost. But it's still a gamble. And I couldn't possibly, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I've gone in and said, hey, I can lose $1,500. And that's my limit. But that was for a week in Vegas. So, but 250,000, that's a gamble, buddy. That's scary.
Yeah, so I'm with you on the gamble. That's probably too much of a gamble. Also because the risk reward, you're not devalue. If you're choosing between Georgia and Alabama, you still have a very good chance of going to the NFL at Alabama. Like, it's not like you're like eliminating your NFL prospects going to Alabama. That's why the 500 to 250, it's like, okay, yeah, take the money. But 500, 450 over time, again, over 4 years, if you include interest rate returns and you're putting that money away, you're probably leaving on a similar point, Dave. You are leaving, I would assume, $500,000 or maybe $400,000 on the table. Like technically 200,000, but now, interest rate returns 350.
Now I will say this, as far as the Sabin discount that said you got to sit for 2 years. If I'm just pick Nico. Okay, Nico can go wherever he wants. Nick Saban's in love with him, but Nick Saban says, "Son, we're going to play some goofball named what was his name? Carson. What's the guy's name? The quarterback.
Carson Beck?
No, Alabama. But anyway.
Jalen Milroe? I don't know.
Okay. You're going to have to sit behind him for 2 years. I would totally do that. And I would tell my son to totally do that. Sit for 2 years.
Yeah. If it's not leaving money on the table, sit for 2 years. No, I'm with you on that. I mean, you can, and Sabin did have a lot of players seeking discounts, but we're seeing with Kirby Smart versus Nick Sabin right now. Nick Sabin, they were both defensive backs coaches, Dave, but you can tell Kirby Smart, Nick Sabin built from the back end. He focused on the secondary first, didn't he? Like he built around defensive backs. And Kirby Smart's building from the defensive line out. I don't think Sabin did that as much.
I think they're probably a little bit more similar than that. I think they both got to their respective campuses and said, we don't have the big nasties. And as a matter of fact, if you remember in Kirby Smart's introductory press conference, he gets like, I've looked at these guys. They're not big enough. It's not going to work. It's kind of hardcore.
Which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because it's not like Mark Richt didn't recruit well at Georgia. He brought the talent in. But yeah, I just think more like if you look at Alabama, like when you talk about Alabama players in the NFL in the Sabin years, the first people that come to mind are cornerbacks from defense. With Georgia, it's the front four. It's defensive linemen. And they just they just absolutely torched Kansas City the other night. I think that Super Bowl, the question is, and should Tennessee be concerned, do you think that Super Bowl is going to give Smart a discount for players and allow him to load up on the defensive line that should not be possible in the NIL age?
All right. Whenever my insurance company decides to pay for my current wrecked car and they're trying not to total it, I will be buying my Bronco, and I'm super excited about it. So those of you that are questioning my intentions, that hurts. And I will definitely do it at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, and they're on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. You'll be absolutely blown away by their selection. Their customer service has been tremendous. I'm like, call me every day. You're welcome to call me every day. Stay on top of me because I got to get this done. And they've been great, but they're like, are you sure we're not bugging you? You're not bugging me. Call me every day. We'll get this done. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep, boop, beep, bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7
frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
We love bringing in this next guy because, I think it probably makes Caleb feel a little bit bad because he's got a good voice, but he doesn't have a Steve Hamer, Dave Hooker voice. Just kind of get to poke fun at him a little bit.
I might as well resign. I might as well just leave. And,
call it a career.
Call it a career. Let Dave and Steve do the show on their own from now on.
Steve, nice enough to join us by our friends at Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. It's right down below. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports and Steve Hamer said hello, as Steve nice enough to jump in there now. Steve, how are you, sir?
Never better, gentlemen, never better. Big orange, rainy Tuesday. You've got a monumental Titanic matchup tonight that I'm really looking forward to. Lots to talk about for sure, man, with Lady Vols and Vols, and I'm ready to jump in, man. It's a great day for basketball.
If I may ask you real quick, did you go to school at the same time as Sterl the Pearl?
No, so ironically, Sterl was one of the very first people that I met on my initial recruiting visit.
Okay.
It was Allen Houston and Sterling Hinton, he was Sterl's about 3 years older than me. Okay. You talk about a guy that lives, breathes, and just embodies what it means to be a VFL. He's it.
Well, the reason I was asking is I was trying to get your time pegged exactly. You both look so young.
Oh, man. Wow.
I mean, there's not a wrinkle in your forehead. I got this crow's feet going on. I'm looking awful, and I'm making Caleb look older every day. But let's go ahead and dive right into it. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Vols to this point in the season? It really is getting to be crunch time, and I feel like they're finding themselves a little bit.
I agree. I think it is right where we probably expected them to be. In a lot of eyes, probably even a little bit better than we expected, right? Because you had just all of these new guys that had to assimilate and acclimate to Coach Barnes's culture, and it was a matter of how quickly could you get those guys to buy in. Speaking of a Chaz Lanier and Igor and Darlin Stone Dubar, and then you had the departure of Santi and Josiah, and all the stalwarts that had been in a part of the program for a long time. But truth be told, man, I'm still very excited about this basketball team. Have we had some bumps in the road, some blips on the radar? Yeah, Florida, at Vandy. But have we had some really good moments? Yeah, at Illinois, Missouri here at home. Say what you will about this past Saturday. I don't care what people say. Oh, Oklahoma, they're 3-7 in the league. They're not very good. You go on the road in the SEC and you dismantle and demolish a team to the point to where their fans start hitting the exit at halftime. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So you held your own. You did the things that you needed to do. Now, I think it's imperative, Caleb and Dave, that we steal one of these on the road. And you got that opportunity tonight to get one at Rupp Arena and put that one back in your win column.
Not to interrupt Caleb real quick, but Steve, do you remember your record at Rupp?
It was actually I think it was 0-6 at Rupp. Yeah, 0-6.
So
What's weird, Dave, is I just gotten over that last week, but comes back around again.
That's
so
not bad.
Steve, I never would have taken a shot like that.
Next time, I was just curious the pressure that goes in there, and now I've gotten Steve shell shocked to the point of probably stuttering the show next week. But I mean, how difficult is it to play? And are the officials really a factor? Because I've been a basketball official before, and you can get caught up in the moment, even if you're not rooting for either team, but you can get caught up in the moment, and RUP's obviously a place that can provide some moments.
It can. And look, we all get upset at officiating and or lack thereof. They got a hard job, man. They really do, especially when you are officiating a Tennessee basketball game. Look, Tennessee is as physical, and it's not just me saying that. There's people like Jimmy Dykes and Jay Billis. They are as physical as any team in the country. The way that we blow up ball screens, the way that we are so gap heavy, man, you're not going to dribble drive without someone reaching in with two hands going after that basketball. So it's a matter of, how the game's going to be officiated. Are they going to let us, bump a little bit? Are they going to let us, put our hands on? Or are they going to be really hands off and call a game that is much more the style to Kentucky, the way they want to play, loose and fast flowing? If we get the former and not the latter, I like our chances. But, Rupp Arena, man, is a tough place to play. Their fans are extremely passionate. Big Blue Nation, man, they're loud and they're proud. And I think they've got a real coach right now, not to take any shots at their previous coach, but I think they got a guy that is a Kentucky guy. He's bought in and he knows that program. He knows the history, he knows the lineage. And it's going to be a tough place to play, man. I do expect us to come in laser focused, because I think I've seen something different about this basketball team the last couple of 3 games, man. They put together a really solid second half against Missouri, where you went 10 of 15 from the 3-point line. You followed that up at Oklahoma, and you make 15 of your first 17 shots. 15 out of 17. You took it to them on the defensive end. You played well offensively. So I think, this team, I like what they're doing, man. I like that they're turning the corner at just the right time. And I like our chances tonight, man. ESPN Analytics likes us too.
So, Steve, getting back to the Tennessee-Oklahoma game real quick, I wanted to talk about the first half, and you just brought up how good they looked at the beginning, and they shot very well against Missouri on Wednesday. And so is it one of those things where the shots are just falling, or are they doing something differently to make the shots more likely to fall, if that makes sense?
Good question, Caleb. I think that they're doing something different to make the shots to fall. And I'll tell you why. If you recall, at halftime of the Missouri game, I think we were down 6 points and even got down as much as 11 with like 19 minutes and 3 seconds left to go in the game. Well, you go back to the halftime adjustments. Coach Barnes said something that it was especially poignant to me and Bob on the post-game show. This was off air. He said, if guys will just do their jobs and be in the right spots, we will knock down shots. Zakai Ziegler virtually echoed word for word, verbatim, what Coach Barnes said to us, that if we just got to our spots, did our jobs, the shots were going to be there and we would knock down those shots. Sometimes, man, we get in the habit of waiting until about 7-8 seconds left before we start to drive and turn the corner and all that. And then all of a sudden it's, oh man, now I got to get the best shot off that I can possibly get. As opposed to, if you're where you're supposed to be when you're running the sets, we can get a shot off with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, then crash the boards, then try to get our own rebounds. So, and I'll go a little bit further. The film session before Oklahoma was not necessarily a pretty film session, man. Coach Barnes absolutely lit into them, unlike many times that I've seen him do that. I mean, he went after those guys the night before the Oklahoma game and challenged each and every one of those guys to do your job. Don't try to be hero. Don't try to do someone else's job. Do your job, and we'll walk away from this game with a victory. Those guys took that personally, and I think that's what happened. So if history is a teacher, I believe that Coach Barnes has once again challenged this team last night in film session. I don't have firsthand knowledge of it, but I believe that Coach Barnes challenged them once again and said, hey, look, let's go back to the first time we played Kentucky. Did you do your job? Did you execute? Or did you shoot 45 threes and knock down just 11 of them? So I think he's challenged these guys once again, and I think we're going to be okay.
Now that we know this team, and it's taken a while because Chaz turned into kind of more of a spot-up shooter than I thought he would be, and Igor looked a little bit lost in the middle of the season, but he's come along. There were times where Zakai Ziegler had to take over, which I don't think was in anyone's best interest. No offense to him, but it's 5'9", it's 5'9". So let me ask you this. Who is Tennessee's most important player moving forward? And I'm going to go ahead and I'd like to go ahead and throw out three that I think are pretty obvious. And I'm going to say Chaz, Igor, and Zakai. And then you tell me the fourth. Who's the fourth most important player? And then we'll discuss how I have them ranked. But who's another important player that has to come through if they're going to make noise in March?
Without a doubt, without hesitation, it's got to be Felix Okpara.
Okay.
Has to be. Because Felix Okpara commands the paint. He commands the middle. He's a shot blocker extraordinaire. Dave and Caleb, go back and look at the box score, the box sheet from the last couple of games in particular. Do you realize that I believe in both of those games, we've had 8 blocked shots. The majority of them have been by Felix Okpara. Do you know how many blocked shots Missouri had against us? 0. Do you know how many blocked shots that Oklahoma had against us? 0. Felix Okpara has such a commanding presence in the paint that he is a defensive stalwart extraordinaire. Coupled with the fact that he is a rim runner, he's catching lobs, and his hands are getting better. I don't know if you guys have seen that over the course of the season, but his hands are getting better. So he is so important to what Tennessee wants to do. If he can get paint touches, look out. If we can get the ball to him early in offensive sets, I think he's just crafty enough to be able to carve out space and score on his own or kick it back out to wide open threes. Secondarily, I'm going to throw a name out at you, man, that you may raise a couple of eyebrows. It's Cade Phillips.
Yeah.
Cade Phillips, man. I had a conversation with Cade Phillips in the tunnel walking out to the bus after the Oklahoma game. And I said, Cade, I'm so excited and so proud of what you are doing. The points, look, people can look at the points and have that as a measuring stick about how good a player is. That's not always the case, man. When you look at someone like Cade Phillips, his fingerprints are all over a basketball game. Think about the number of times that he gets on the floor. Think about the number of times that he hustles back on defense, getting blocked shots, tipping the ball. Obviously, he's a lob threat. His offensive game is coming along, but he does so many things at a really good level. So secondarily, I'm going to say Cade Phillips, man, has got to be the guy to continue to do those things, loose balls and block shots and rim running. If he can get those things, if we can get those from our bigs, we can go a long ways in March and April.
I want to share what real quick. I want to share what Adam said. Just get your thoughts on this. I thought it was a good comment. Tennessee is the best looking team in college basketball when we're playing well. Igor is the most freakish player in the country. He just needs to play with toughness. Is that a fair statement?
It's fair. When you look at, there's a lot of different ways you can measure toughness. A lot of people measure toughness with, big guys. I'm going to go back to my playing days. Bill Laimbeer. Everybody thought he was a tough guy, right? Kurt Rambis, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Rick Mahorn, Buddha Edwards. Those guys were tough guys, right? How did we define that toughness? Because they were big, strong, broad-shouldered guys that knocked people to the floor and just had their way in the paint. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But when you juxtapose that with Igor, I wouldn't say that Igor is not a tough guy. I would say that Igor is a exceptionally talented guy when it comes to basketball IQ, right?
Right.
Which adds toughness to his game. If you look at Igor, he's a traditional European guy, man. He's going to finish. He may not necessarily flush, but he's going to drive to the basket, go up with the right, switch it to the left, and lay it in, right? He's going to get the ball. He's going to be able to lob it a 4 to 5 alley-oop with Felix or Cade. He's going to lead the team in rebounding, which he does right now. He's getting a little over 8 rebounds a game. He's going to be able to shoot threes. He's going to be able to do all of those intangibles that we need him to do to be able to make a run. So I wouldn't necessarily say that Igor is not tough. I just think you can define toughness in a lot of different ways.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry again, Caleb. Did you overlap with Larry Bird at all?
Say that again.
Did you overlap with Larry Bird at all? I know he had the back issues.
Yeah, Larry, when I was drafted, Larry had just taken the head coaching job of the Indiana Pacers.
Oh.
So I had no overlap with him or McHale or Parrish or, any of the old time greats, man. I didn't have the luxury of playing with those guys.
I was hoping for a trash talking story because he's legendary for that. Did he ever do it as a coach?
No, not to me. I was never in the game at the right time for him to talk trash, man. We were always losing by 30 when I got in the game, so there's no need to talk trash.
Caleb, I'm sorry to interrupt. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Again, get on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN. Follow them today. Caleb?
Steve, I wanted to get to a point of what you said about Felix Opera because I agree. I don't think anybody covering Tennessee expected him to be an offensive threat, but it seems like he can be with certain things. And I think part of that is one of the things that Wes Rucker tweeted this a while back, and then I noticed it on Saturday. His free throw shooting's really underrated, isn't it? I know the percentage is not there, but his form and everything looks really good. And if he becomes a real threat from the free throw line and you can't foul him, how dominant can that make Tennessee inside?
Yeah, I co-sign on everything that you just said, Caleb, because when he got here, he struggled a little bit. He was scuffling from the free throw line, going back to Ohio State, man, didn't shoot free throws very well. But you can tell he's worked on his craft and he's knocking free throws down. He's the type of guy that if you notice late in ball games, we're not having to take him out. We're not having to sub for him. I mean, he's in the game, right? Because coaches got belief in him that he's, go to the charity stripe and knock down some big-time free throws. So I think that just adds to his repertoire that if he gets fouled, which, he has been fouled here of late a lot, he can go to the line and knock it down. Especially, you go back to the Missouri game, that game was a lot closer than it should have been. We went up by 14 points, and because of a lack of boxing out, man, they had a 4-point play. And then, they had some threes to cut the lead down, but Felix went to the line 4 times, I believe, and went 3 out of 4 from the free throw line. So percentages are getting better and better from Felix. But then again, man, he's nowhere near, Caleb, what he can be. Nowhere near. He is by no means a polished, a finished product. He's got a lot of growth to do. And he's learning the game and understanding the game better and better because he's being coached at an elite level.
So just for a little fun, who looked worse on Saturday, or who was more humiliated over the weekend? Oklahoma's defense in the first half against Tennessee, or Drake on Sunday?
Okay, so I gotta go. I gotta be honest, man. I'm gonna say Oklahoma's defense, and I'll tell you why. I had firsthand knowledge of both of those. The halftime show on Sunday night, Oklahoma. I gotta be honest. I'm gonna say that, you know, at the risk of grandpa, you know, get off my lawn, I turned to my son about midway through that concert. My son's 20 years old. And matter of fact, I turned to my daughter too. She's 12. And I said, guys, I have no idea what he's saying. I can't understand him. Like, what is he saying? And we're at the house of another couple who are about my wife and I's age. And they're like, Steve, I know. What's he saying? What is that? What is that, an American flag? I don't follow Drake or Kendrick Lamar. Yeah, I don't even follow him. So I literally had to have someone tell me yesterday about the beef between those two and about the subtleties, about how they're going after one another. Man, the last time I knew that rappers went after one another, it was Tupac and Biggie. I mean, that was 30 years ago.
Oh, and there's a great documentary. It's on Tupac that I'll send you. It's new.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big documentary guy, and I'm a big Tupac to me was, I don't know, get sidetracked, but he was a true poet. Like, if he'd have just written poetry and not done hip hop or any of that, he would have been a successful poet.
I'm not going to lie. I love the petty, vindictive Tupac in his later albums, though, because he's so mad and it's so funny.
Your wife. But but no, I will say this, though, on the other end of the spectrum, I was asking my daughter for music to listen to while I worked out, and she sent me Kendrick Lamar, and I was like, I'm not going to like it because I like Dr. Dre and Snoop and all those guys.
Yeah,
I put it in, I was like, Dad, blame it. I like it. I actually, and so now my go-to when I walk in the gym is, yep, Kendrick
There
Lamar.
you go. There you go. There you go.
I'm trying to stay young like you. All right, Steve, anything else from you, Caleb? Or are we going to let Steve out of here?
Nope, I am good. I'm between the Kendrick and Tupac era, funny enough. I grew up at my time was as Southern rap was taking over in the early 2000s. So
that's your problem. All right. Steve, have a blessed day, sir. We appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you guys so very much, man. Honored to be on with you. Love talking Tennessee hoops, and you know, who would have had it on their bingo card that we'd be talking about Kendrick Lamar and Drake. But I will say this: Drake has the what is that? Call me on my
Hotline Bling.
Yeah. That's it. I do know that one.
I got another funny old story. So I go in a convenience store, and the guy's got his phone hooked up to the speakers, so it's playing. I can't even remember the name of the song, and I said, "Oh, this sounds like a remake from when I was a kid and listened to rap music, and that's how old I am." And he goes, "No, this isn't a remake. This is just a 30-year-old song." I was like, "Stop it! Stop it!"
Oh my gosh,
Steve, have a blessed day. We love you, man.
Hey, love you guys, man. Appreciate you guys as always.
Thank you, man. That's good stuff. So, yeah, but Kendrick Lamar is pretty good.
I mean, Kendrick's got bars, man. He's got bars.
I mean, he to me
is natural.
His flow, but you will never hear me say this again. He's in the ballpark of being a poet like Tupac.
Oh yeah, he's the thing about Tupac, and I love him. He wasn't like a technically skilled rapper. You're right. He was more of a poet because, like, what I mean, like, it's like you couldn't really get Tupac like in a club and like have him come out and like just start emceeing like in classic traditional hip hop ways, the way a Biggie or Jay-Z can.
With Digital Underground, he was
he wrote his lyrics on paper, put it that way. Like traditional hip hop emceeing in the 80s was you're supposed to be able to just speak off the cuff. That's what, freestyle. That's what Jay-Z does. That's what Biggie did. And the whole punchline rap that they did. Kendrick can do that, but he also can do the poetry. So he's got a little bit of both on it, which is really impressive. I mean, he's incredible. And I say that not to shade Tupac, just because you can't freestyle great doesn't mean
I just hate that we don't have rock anymore. We don't have guitar-driven music. I'm not talking about hairband stuff, but like the same guy that was playing that had a Nirvana shirt on, and I was like, that album's awesome. He goes, I've never heard of it. And I'm like, what? And,
there became...
I mean, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses. I'm not trying to... I hate not having that.
Well, what happened with rock is starting in the 90s, there became such an obsession with like alternative, non-corporatized rock and the backlash to the 80s hair bands. Right. But as you know, the alternative rock, there became so many genres, but they all became corporatized too. Because like, guess what? If people like you, you're going to become corporatized because the labels are going to pick you up.
Well,
so then rock...
and then they did the pop grunge and like Weezer. I would pay somebody to beat Weezer with a baseball bat.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they all became... There's no rock genre that can have an identity anymore, because if your identity became being anti-commercial and rebellious, well, you can't be anti-commercial and rebellious when you're getting signed to a record label, so it's like, yeah, that's the problem with rock.
Yeah, Adam with a good point. I was just thinking how much better Outkast and Nelly were than Tupac and Biggie. Then it hit me they were more pop than rap. Yeah, I mean, Tupac and Biggie really shot each other, or didn't shoot each other, but there were good shots fired. And I mean, there are 3 shootings between 2 rappers, so that's pretty significant. Let's talk about something a little more.
Outkast was not pop though. That was the last album. They were they were just very musically inclined for most of their career. They just did a pop album that did really well.
Is that the one that has Big Boy and the other guy
and Andre 3000? Yeah.
Did you hear what he did?
What did Big Boy do?
No. Andre 3000. This is crazy.
Where he did an album where he just played the flute.
Yeah, he took his money and just toured the world and wherever he felt like, and he won a Grammy
because he is pure lyrical, pure like rapping ability. Just get somebody on a mic. No one can touch Andre. No one alive can touch Andre. Like he's.
I didn't know that was the case with the flute.
He's very musically inclined.
In Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
It reminds me like back in the Doors, like after the Doors had a great album, The Doors, and they were mega stars. And if you've ever listened front to back, it has like 8 great songs. And they asked Jim Morrison, what do you want to do next? Oh, just write a poetry book. So can you imagine somebody going to Andre 3000 and said, what's your plan? I'm going to tour the world and learn how to play the damn flute.
He might have already known. I mean, he was a band kid growing up. He was a concert band kid growing up. So he might have already known.
The manager had to be like, no, please, Lord, Milk It, Have a Cigar by Pink Floyd. Milk the Money Train. That's what you do. He didn't do that. He learned how to play the flute. So good for him. Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history is?
On this day, 13 years ago, Tennessee basketball, under Cuonzo Martin, his first year, scored a top 10 road victory to beat number 8 Florida to secure a second-place finish in the SEC. After a really rough start when they were adjusting to a style of play, they finished. It was actually a great finish of the season. They couldn't quite make the NCAA tournament because they had too many bad losses on their resume. But that itself, on its own, was a very impressive win that they had.
The entire handling of Cuonzo Martin is extremely embarrassing. You know, we could debate whether or not Greg Schiano should have gotten what he got, but Cuonzo Martin shouldn't have gotten what he got. There was a decent size, and when I say decent, I'm not talking about the crazy 5%. I'm talking about 25, 30% that didn't like Cuonzo Martin because he's African-American and made fun of his name. And we were this is not the 60s. This is not the 70s. That was just befuddling to me. And I was stunned how bad it was, Caleb. And again, I was in one show. I listened to one show, and it was they never referred to him as Cuonzo. It was Cuonzo, like after the African American holiday at the end of the year.
Yeah, there were some. I think. It's like 3 layers to this. I don't think he was the greatest coach. I don't think he got a fair shake at Tennessee. I get how some people were unfair to him for his race. There was another larger contingency though that was very unhappy with how Bruce Pearl was fired. and they felt Mike Hamilton should have backed Bruce Pearl, so they weren't happy to see Bruce Pearl go. And then Konzo comes in and runs a totally different system. I mean, you go from 6 years of full court press, basically a cheerleader as your head coach, and Bruce Pearl that is so entertaining, to a very measured, we're going to play half court defense and run a basic motion offense and focus on man-to-man tough defense. And we're going to, I mean, you don't want to, it's like going from Nolan Richardson to Kevin O'Neal in the 90s.
By the way, unsung post, boosters wouldn't let Martin use their jets from what I heard.
They wouldn't let him use it for free
because they like Bruce. That gets back to Bruce's point. Nevertheless, this day in Tennessee sports history brought to you by Work Trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships, they just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. They're fantastic. If you're a contractor, you got to know Work Trucks. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham. Work Trucks, proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Now, Adam says Martin underperformed everywhere he went after Tennessee. That speaks to Caleb's point. He was not a great coach. He was maybe an above average coach at best, but I don't think he bolts to Cal if he's not called Quanzo on the radio all the time.
Yeah. Two things can be true at the same time. A coach can maybe not be a great coach and not have worked out, but also at the same time could have gotten an unfair shake. Both things can be true. Like this, Dave, I do it with Derek Dooley. Derek Dooley, it can be true that Derek Dooley was not a great coach. It can also be true that he had a really short stick to work with when he took over Tennessee and inherited a massive dumpster fire of a program that was borderline impossible to pull out.
I think with him personally, you've heard of the Peter Principle?
What's the Peter Principle?
Okay, like the Peter Principle is a guy who can be an incredible CFO, but when he gets moved up to CEO, he can't handle that added responsibility. To me, that was Dooley. He was a good coordinator, but the head coaching stuff, it was just too much. I mean, when I heard that within 2 weeks, he wasn't happy with the person putting plaster on the outside hall of his office and went out there and said, let me just do it myself. What?
That's true.
You don't just go do it yourself. You don't like that guy. You say, Carl, get the hell out of here. I'm going to get Bob to do it.
What about this one? Here's one. Mike Shula. Does Mike Shula get a bit of an unfair rep at Alabama, given how much of a disaster he was dealing with those 4 years?
No, because I met Mike Shula, and I'm pretty sure that he didn't know how to spell his last name. More like 2 minutes, just 5 letters. 2 minutes. I mean, that's one I can give you. My Mike Shula story. Do you want to hear it?
So let's go.
I used to station myself at the front of SEC Media Days. You didn't get the full experience, but when it's in Hoover, they all come in one place. So Alabama Day is the big day. And he comes in and he sees Radio Row that has, 75 radio stations. He sees all these Alabama fans, and then he sees Dave Hooker, redheaded guy who Jimmy Himes and our goal was to get every single player or coach one-on-one except for Steve Spurrier because he wouldn't do it. That was always our goal. Now you get none of them, as you know. But I remember I said, hey, Mike, do you have a chance to visit? And he goes, I got to go pay. It sounded.
Why did you make him sound like, what was it, Forrest Gump?
Because it sounded just like it. And I said, well, the restroom's right over there. But he didn't even say thank you or anything. It was like this. It was like his eyes were real big. I gotta pay.
By the way, because I'm a literature guy, I think Lenny from Of Mice and Men when you do the Forrest Gump accent. But
oh yeah, that's probably one of the 5 books I've actually read.
Oh, interesting.
Written 1 book and only read 5. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones, other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. That means less for you. Coming up on the program, what do we got next, Caleb?
We're going to talk a little bit about Tennessee basketball dropping in the AP poll, and also, is 10-2 enough to get them into the college football playoff?
Should be. We'll discuss. Caleb has a reason why not. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we're still trying to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Hey, thanks for pointing out, Dan. I haven't hit like and subscribe, I don't think, the whole show, and that's just poor fundamentals by me, but we've had a good time. I think we've had a great show. I think the show is actually hitting an all-time high. I'm really happy with it. Blessed to have Caleb Calhoun. If we can both just stay healthy, trying to get him off the hemp. But with me, it's just but Dan's okay. So I got scared during the break after we talked about the Peter principle, because I didn't know if that had a reference to male genitalia at all. Fortunately, it does not.
I'm sorry. That's where my mind went.
Well, so did Dan. Peter principle, rising to the highest level of incompetence. I think there's a sexual innuendo there. By the way, it was written by an author named Peter. That was his last name. So that's where it comes from.
Okay.
So I feel much better about myself. Because there for a second, I was like, did I just use, like, I don't know, did I basically just use a Quanzo term having to do with the sexual reference? I mean, did I say something inappropriate? Because even though we're not governed by the FCC and we can say bleep, 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 whatever we want, we like to have.
YouTube will demonetize us if we do that, though. So, you know.
Will they really?
Oh, yeah. They'll demonetize you if you cuss. That's why you see people not cussing anymore a lot of times. But, you know, if you say Peter, they're probably okay because that's a real name. You should be like, that's a real name.
That's right. He's a Peter Brady.
That's a real name.
That's a get your
that's about a full sack of Karen right now.
There you go. All right. What the H? I'm trying to figure this one out because I'm a little frustrated and confused. What the H right now?
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
And I want to be clear, Adam. I didn't call Mike Shula stupid to his face. He says if you're just looking to argue with people. All right. So, Caleb, when does the AP basketball poll come out?
It comes out on Monday afternoons.
Okay. What was Tennessee in the AP poll? Not this week, but last week.
Last week, Tennessee was 4th in the AP poll.
Okay. What did they do in the 7 days following?
They beat a top 25 team, and then they beat a team with 17 wins that is projected to make the NCAA tournament on the road by 18 points.
Okay. And what happened in the latest AP poll?
They somehow dropped a spot from 4th to 5th.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to give me a reason why they dropped. And perhaps it's another team that did more than they did over the past week. But to me, based off what you said, it makes absolutely no sense that they would have dropped. So can you give me a possible reason? You may be reaching. I understand that. I'm not going to record this and hold it against you that Caleb said you should drop in the AP poll even when you lose. But what's the deal?
They bumped Florida ahead of Tennessee because Florida went to Auburn, the #1 team in the nation, and beat them on the road. They didn't want to drop Auburn too much because that's only Auburn's second loss. Auburn still has the best record in college basketball and a top 5 strength of schedule. So they stayed at #1 in the AP and dropped to #2 in the coaches, but they didn't want to bump Auburn too much. Never mind the fact that Tennessee beat Florida by 22 Saturdays ago. However, okay, I think that should count for something to keep Tennessee ahead of Florida for now, but I get it if you say, well, Florida beat Tennessee by 30 at home and then they just beat Auburn on the road. So if you say you want to move Florida ahead of Tennessee, fine. Here's my problem. You move Florida ahead of Tennessee. You tie them for 3rd in the AP poll with Duke, who also lost, which I want to get to. Tennessee has played Florida twice and Auburn once. So by putting these teams this high, you're acknowledging Tennessee has had a brutal schedule facing facing who you AP voters say is the #1 team and who you also say is the #3 team in the nation. They've got 3 games against those 2 teams, and Tennessee's 20-4. So you're acknowledging their greatness. My issue is Duke. Duke is 20-3. They lost to Clemson over the weekend. Tennessee is 20-4. You cannot hold that 1 game difference in a loss against Tennessee versus Duke when you're openly saying Tennessee has played 3 games against the #1 and #3 teams in the nation that we're calling.
And you're playing in the nation's best basketball conference. There, I said it, Dookies.
Yeah, consistently. And the data proves Tennessee's schedule strength is significantly better than Duke's. So when you take that into account, I'm sorry, man. Based on the criteria the AP poll goes, and it's not the net rankings, because the net rankings would have Duke ahead of Tennessee right now, which is fine. I get it. They have their own philosophy. But based on the AP criteria, there's no way that they should be behind Duke. There's absolutely no way they should be behind Duke.
Okay, so I have a couple of years on you, and I can recall a time where Florida, the University of Florida, was kind of looked at as a football school that played basketball. And if you threw them a bone, and I mentioned this yesterday, they throw Tennessee a bone. Hey, you can be a 2 seed in the tournament when really you should have been a 1, or you can be a 4 when you should have been a 2. I've been at those press conferences where they have the team there and they announce it and they're sad and you can tell they're disappointed. I feel like Florida was like that. Again, probably a little bit before your time, right? Before the Billy Donovan back-to-backs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, that was my. I mean, before the Billy Donovan era. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So you have to break through and win one, and I think that is the biggest concern. And you're right, Joe Vols 64 rankings don't matter until the season is over, but they kind of do. And I don't think, Adam, that everybody hates Tennessee, but I think they look at it as you're just doing them a favor of giving them a high ranking or a high seed. You know what this tells me? And again, Joe, rankings don't matter until the end of the season, but they kind of do, because this tells me that if Tennessee's between a 1 and a 2 seed, there ain't no way they're getting a 1 seed.
No, you're right. I mean, that they're making that very clear. And for what it's worth, I mean, accomplishments mean something in basketball, and getting a 1 seed would be an accomplishment in basketball, to be honest, guys. So that's something you can not really hang a banner, but you can hang your hat on, right? That you got a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like your first ever number 1 seed.
Yeah. I mean, just don't go lose against the 16. That'd be pretty embarrassing. But and
if anybody would, it could be Rick Barnes. Sorry.
That is just awful. Rick somewhere's ears are burning. He's like, "What did I just do?"
Oh, he's praying. What are you talking about? It's 11:50 on a Tuesday. He's probably in church praying. No,
probably
Rick Barnes.
Probably. I'm actually going to his church on Sunday. By the way.
Really? He's Protestant, right? Or is he Baptist?
Well, I am, so I hope we're going to the same. Yeah. So, yeah. But
because I know Nick Sabin went to a large. Actually, went to a mass. He would go to mass every week regularly to Alabama.
Oh, I thought he went every morning.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was every morning. Yeah. And he decided to go to a smaller mass down the road because a bunch of Protestant Alabama fans who probably were on the anti-Catholic train before Nick Saban got there decided, I'm going to go to Catholic mass now. You know, I've just decided I'm Catholic, I guess. And then started going there all the time because they had to touch the great Sabin. So.
Right. And fortunately, Mike Shula was at the door to show him where the restroom was.
All right. Nick Saban should have hired him to do that.
Yeah, that's right. He just comes up to me. Nick Saban goes, I got to pee. It's not over there. All right. So, are we good here? Or because I want to
I wanted to talk a little bit, just real quickly about this seating thing. I think that, I mean, it's not like the biggest deal. I get it, what people are talking about, but it's like, this is the classic blue blood versus non-blue blood, because there's no way you can look at Tennessee's and Duke's resumes and say that Tennessee's not better than Duke. And by the way, in the coaches poll, Tennessee is number 4 and Duke is number 5. So Tennessee didn't drop. I have no problem with them not moving up despite last week's impressive run, because that, like, the Florida, Alabama, and Auburn are just brutally good. I have a problem with them dropping, though. Just doesn't make sense is the way I want to kind of close this out.
I got no argument with that, except it does make sense because it's Duke. And that's going to start to slip away over time. Just like the Southwest Conference, way before your time, was considered the best football conference. The Big Ten was considered the best football conference. Well, over time, it became the SEC. Now, we'll see what happens now. But it's going to take a while for the ACC to take a slip. But I think it'll happen sooner rather than later because of NIL money. I want to remind you, our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas have free prizes for you from Off the Hook Sports if you just stop by their Athens exit. And they'll also give you $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. And it comes with everything, the steps, the cover lift. It's all right there. Dynasty Pools and Spas. And in a second, while we're not sure that 10 wins gets Tennessee in a college football playoff. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, I'm going to challenge Caleb because he brought something up in the 3:45 a.m. production meeting that I thought was crazy. And that's not unusual because we drink during that meeting a lot. No, we don't. Give me 4 reasons why Tennessee could be left out of the college football playoff if they win 10 games.
Okay. I can give you 2 right off the bat. If the selection committee does what they should do and heavily value schedule strength more, there will be certain Big Ten and certain SEC teams who would have a better resume at 9-3 than Tennessee would at 10-2. Hot take. Now, luckily for Tennessee, they play these 2 schools, but let's just take Florida, for instance. Again, they play each other. But let's say Florida's 9-3, Tennessee's 10-2, but Florida beat Tennessee. And you look at the schedules, Dave, you would have to take Florida, even with the worst record, because the schedule of Florida is so much more brutal than Tennessee's schedule. So if they do what they should do and value strength of schedule, which they did not do last year, so if they alter that, then you will have to say that that you would have to be fair and say,
Okay, I'm going to shout that one down. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this is going to be the same selection committee that we had this past year, and they didn't place enough of an emphasis on strength of schedule. So maybe they see the wrong of their ways and they change. But based off what I saw last year, I think your scenario would be more likely to happen in 2027.
Okay, where did I cut off? Sorry, I didn't realize I cut off right there. Did I? What was the last thing I said?
I know you were golden.
Okay. So here's the next.
Another reason.
Let's say hypothetically they don't factor in strength of schedule, and Tennessee just goes 10-2. Up until the second to last week of the season this past year, Tennessee was on the outside looking in of the college football playoff with 2 losses, and then they lucked out that Ole Miss lost to Florida, and then there was, I believe, 1 other 2, and then Alabama lost to Oklahoma. But if Ole Miss and Alabama had won, Tennessee would have been on the outside looking in again in the college football playoff. So that's reason number 2, is that even last year at 10-2, they barely got in. Now here's reason number 3. We as a college football fan base got really lucky last year, Dave. And here's why. There was only 1 Indiana. I argue too. I think Texas was kind of an Indiana too. But what I mean by that is there were only 2 teams that in this era of scheduling imbalances of conferences. And what I mean by that is the SEC has 16 teams and they're playing an 8-game conference schedule. The Big Ten has 18 teams and they're playing a 9-games conference schedule. That creates so much imbalance. Bragging about the conference you're in is stupid because you could get the easiest draw in your conference. So I think more years than not, there will be more than 1 Indiana that goes 11-1 because they just got the easiest draw possible in the conference. And I'll just go down the Big Ten real quick.
So you're not saying that Indiana's good or elite. You're just saying because of the crazy schedules that there could be more than 1 that warrant consideration is what you're saying.
Yes. There could be more than 1 that warrant consideration. So let's just take Nebraska.
And I got your 4th one on, by the way. 4 downs brought to you by our good friends at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Yes.
So let's take you know what? Let's start with some of the easiest schedules. And by the way, according to the SEC, according to data, this would benefit Tennessee the most because they have one of the easier SEC schedules. But let's just take Missouri. Okay, let's take Missouri next year. Missouri plays their SEC schedule: South Carolina at home, Alabama at home, at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, and at Arkansas. You could very theoretically, and then their non-conference schedule: Central, Arkansas, Kansas, and Louisiana, and UMass. You could very theoretically see Missouri cash in and maybe win one upset game and then go 11-1 next year because they got the easiest draw you could possibly dream of in the SEC. And then you could see in the Big Ten, even if the Big Ten is tougher next year, which I don't think it is, I think the teams that get the bottom half of the schedule in the Big Ten, because it's so imbalanced with 18 teams, get really easy draws. So let's just take Nebraska. Nebraska plays Cincinnati, Akron, and Houston Christian as their non-conference games. Then their Big Ten schedule, they avoid Ohio State and they avoid Oregon. Their toughest game is at Penn State. They can win every other game, though, and go 11-1 and be a mediocre team. Indiana can, and Illinois can literally do the same thing. Like, Illinois' one big tough game is Ohio State. Indiana does play Oregon and Penn State, so they're not going to repeat what they did last year. But say Illinois beats Indiana, Illinois could easily go 11-1 because Ohio State's the one powerhouse team they play. And also, more importantly, Michigan, who looked good down the stretch of last year, could go 11-1, given the fact that their only real tough Big Ten opponent is Ohio State at the end of the year, and they could lose that game and win every other game. So you're going to see a lot more Indianas of teams, and I'm saying this in the SEC and the Big Ten, teams that are not that good that go 11-1 because they got a lucky draw in the schedule strength. And by the way, Tennessee is going to be not that good, but they will be on that side of the schedule strength because they get a good draw in the SEC. So if a bunch of teams start going 11-1, just by sheer numbers, Tennessee would have to go 11-1 to get into the college football playoff.
I'm going to give you the fourth reason. First, I want to address Adam's question. Sabin is Catholic and didn't want to take the Notre Dame job. Well, no, because you can't cheat there as easily. And you also can't control academics and you can't control discipline. So imagine a control freak like Nick Saban. Lou Holtz couldn't take it. If Lou Holtz couldn't take it, then Nick Saban couldn't have taken it. I'm going to give you the fourth one, and I think it might be the most damning one.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
I think Tennessee's not very sexy anymore. I think people have heard about this Nico guy since he was probably 6.5 years old. I think that Tennessee has throttled it down and played the 2 tight end set. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I've said I thought it was great coaching. I think there will be a little bit of backlash against Tennessee also because they didn't show up in Columbus. You make a big deal, you get all those fans up there and you're challenging them and you just don't show up and get hammered. And we can talk about the Sampson injury and all that, but I think there could be some Tennessee fatigue. And listen, there was Alabama fatigue, but they were so good it didn't matter. Tennessee's not on that level right now and may never be.
Well, and let's talk some politicking real quick. Alabama went 9-3 last year and was claiming they deserved a spot in the playoff. You and I did not think they did, and that was the right call. But aren't you willing to bet that if they were 9-3 with Nick Saban, they're getting that last playoff bid over SMU?
No question. No question. The smartest and most obvious thing that Caleb's ever said. If Nick Saban is in that coaching chair, they're probably a 1 seed. They find a way to make him a 1 seed.
They give him a bye.
2 buys. That's what they do. All right, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. As we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. They're on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. This has been a presentation